My name is Mrs. Bassi Kalu, and this is the story of my life. And thank you, MaC-Anison TV, for this privilege.
Better a man who never hopes than a man who hopes and is broken again and again. 15 years of marriage and no child, yet the only thing she wished for, more than breath, more than life itself, was to give him children. As if afraid to wound a heart already stitched with scars. Perhaps I do not deserve a man like my husband. Perhaps I am the thief of his joy.
You're about to hear a story that carries the heart of Africa. Subscribe to African Folktales by MaC-Anison TV, where every week we share rarest African folktales you won't find anywhere else. Your subscription is the fuel that inspires us to bring you the very best of our storytelling heritage. The morning sun had barely broken through the mist when silence held the Kalu household. A silence thick with unsaid prayers and unspoken fears. The air carried with it the heaviness of years, years of longing, years of whispered supplications, years of unanswered questions that haunted like shadows even in daylight. And there, within that silence, a child's destiny hung unformed, waiting to take its first breath against the backdrop of a love story tested by time, pain, and hope. "Honey, please hurry up, we are running late," Mrs. Bassie's voice called, trembling on the edge of impatience but softened with love. Her words filled the small home like the sweet fragrance of hibiscus, a gentle urgency that bore the weight of routine and resignation. Inside, Mr. Kalu adjusted the cuffs of his shirt, the ritual of a man determined to hold order in a life where so much was disorder. His reply came, firm but tender, as though balancing his love for his wife and his stubbornness that life must bend toward his will. "Sweetheart, I'm coming. Almost done." She paused, exhaled, and leaned against the wooden frame of their door. "Okay, I'm waiting," she whispered. Not just about the doctor's visit, but about life itself. Waiting had been her burden, her song, her silent grief. 15 years of marriage, and no child had filled their home with laughter. Yet in that silence, Mr. Kalu's faith had never waned. Against the howling winds of his family's disapproval, against the whispers of neighbors who saw barrenness as a curse, he had chosen her. He had chosen love over legacy. For him, loyalty was not negotiable. It was the bedrock of his soul. A man who abandons the woman of his youth for greener pastures forgets that even rivers run dry in seasons. The ancestors seemed to murmur through the walls, wisdom echoing from generations past. Still, Mrs. Bassie's heart ached with a hidden sorrow. Every doctor's visit was a needle to her hope. Each diagnosis the breaking of another unseen thread that tethered her to the dream of motherhood. She wanted to cancel today, to delay the inevitable disappointment. She wanted to shield her husband's eyes from that familiar cloud of grief that always returned heavier after every visit. "Honey, why are you persistent that we go see the doctor today? We can always go some other time. Why today?" Her question trembled between skepticism and silent plea. And then Mr. Kalu turned to her, his eyes carrying a fire she couldn't fully name. His voice was steady, almost prophetic. "Because today feels different. I can sense it." In that moment, the air between them thickened. She looked away, her face cloaked with sadness, afraid of the crack in her husband's faith if reality struck again. Her heart whispered what her lips would not. Better a man who never hopes than a man who hopes and is broken again and again. But he held fast. To him, this day was no ordinary day. Perhaps it was the way the morning sun carved golden rivers across the sky, or how the silence of dawn carried the weight of a promise. He felt it in his bones, the ancestral pull that sometimes grips a man when destiny is near. And the ancestors seemed to murmur once more. When the heart insists on a journey, even the earth beneath will shift to make a path. Mrs. Bassie, however, felt none of that. She was weary. Her mind replayed every visit, the sterile smell of the hospital,
the clipped voices of doctors, the hollow promises of maybe next time. She remembered the sting of pity in the nurse's eyes, the unkind silence of those who did not speak because their thoughts were sharper than knives. She feared her husband's faith was a flame burning too close to dry leaves. It could spark despair greater than anything they had yet endured. But Mr. Kalu's thoughts were different. He remembered his parents urging him to remarry, to discard the woman they called a tree without fruit. He had refused, for in his heart, love was not measured in children, but in sacrifice. His defiance was not just against his parents, it was against a world that measured manhood by lineage alone. Now, as he tied his shoelaces, he felt an unshakable certainty. Something about today is different. Mrs. Bassey, standing by the door, her hands trembling though she tried to hide it, whispered inwardly, "If hope is a bird, why does it keep crashing into walls?" She adjusted her dress, her gaze fixed on nothing in particular. If she had been born in another life, perhaps she would have been free from this weight of expectation. But in this one, her body had become the battlefield upon which her love and her culture waged war. "Sweetheart, because today feels different. I can sense it," he repeated, his voice carrying the authority of a man speaking not just to his wife, but to the unseen spirits that bore witness. And she sighed, defeated by the inevitability of his faith. The look in her eyes was a storm she could not name, a mixture of love for the man she adored and fear that hope would one day crush him. When the drumbeat of fate begins, no man can unhear its rhythm, the ancestors whispered again, unseen, unheard, except by the hearts that dared to believe. And so, the morning unfolded with unspoken tension. She straightened her back, forcing a smile that never reached her eyes. He adjusted his tie, carrying himself with the quiet dignity of a man marching to meet destiny. The road to the doctor's office would not just be a journey of miles, but of hearts. Two souls tethered to each other, yet pulled in different directions by hope and fear. The camera of life lingered on them as they stepped out of the door, holding hands not just as husband and wife, but as comrades in an unseen war. Behind them, their home stood silent, yet heavy with the echoes of prayers unanswered. Ahead, the world awaited with secrets only destiny could reveal. And so, they walked into the rising sun, one carrying faith like a torch, the other carrying doubt like a shadow. Together, yet worlds apart. The ancestors whispered still, "Hope is both the anchor and the storm. It steadies the heart, but it can also drown it." And with that, the first step of this fateful day was taken. The white walls of the doctor's office seemed to hold their breath, as though they too were weary of repeating the same words year after year, visit after visit. The ticking clock echoed like a drum of fate in the silence, heavy and almost cruel in its rhythm. The doctor leaned back in his chair, his face kind but rehearsed, his voice measured, as if afraid to wound a heart already stitched with scars. "Doctor, you're both medically fine. Just be patient. Children will come at the right time. You can't force it." His words fell into the air like dry leaves drifting into an endless river, words meant to comfort, yet cutting deeper into Mrs. Bassey's fragile soul. Every syllable was familiar, every phrase a repetition of old wounds. To her, they were not words of hope, but echoes of failure. And every time it broke her heart, her husband loved her very much. She knew this, and she loved him too. Yet the only thing she wished for, more than breath, more than life itself, was to give him children. Children that would run barefoot on red earth, their laughter filling the compound, their voices calling him Daddy. She wept silently, not because she was afraid, but because she felt the cruel weight of blame upon herself. She felt she was the problem, a barren tree in fertile soil, a sealed calabash where water should flow. She thought, "Perhaps I do not deserve a man like my husband. Perhaps I am the thief of his joy." Mr. Kalu noticed her silence, the kind of silence that carries storms within. He turned gently toward her, his heart tightening at the sight of her distant eyes. He reached for her, pulling her into the warmth of his arms, as though shielding her from the invisible daggers of sorrow. His voice was soft, yet trembling with devotion, the way a sacred hymn trembles in a worshipper's chest. "My darling wife, the one that makes my heart beat, the one whose laughter melts my heart." Mrs. Bassey, 30 years old, beautiful as dawn breaking over the savannah, stood in his embrace, her soul trembling with both gratitude and guilt. Her beauty was the kind that turned heads, the kind that inspired songs. Light-skinned, with a slender waist, curving hips that swayed like river reeds, cheeks soft and pink as hibiscus petals, lips full with promise, and eyes bright as a morning star. Her smile, when it came, could melt even the hardest heart. But in this moment, her smile was drowned by tears. She turned and hugged her husband very tightly, burying her face against his chest. "If only I could give him a child," she thought. "If only I could make our family complete." He stroked her back, whispering again with gentleness, "It's okay, my heartbeat. Stop crying." On our way coming back from the hospital, there's a newly opened restaurant downtown. "You'll love it. Let's have lunch together, just you and me." Her tears slowed, her lips quivered into a faint smile, the way dawn breaks after a storm. She looked at him, her heart swelling once again with love. "If it pleases you, my love, then let's have lunch." And so they rose and went to the hospital once more, carrying in their hearts both fear and fragile hope. The doctor's office seemed brighter this time, as though heaven itself had shifted. The doctor looked at them, his eyes softening into something different, no longer rehearsed, no longer pity. His words carried a new weight, the weight of joy. "Mr. and Mrs. Kalu, congratulations. You're expecting a baby." The world stilled. The clock stopped ticking. Even the air paused, as though creation itself was listening. Mr. Kalu rose, stunned, his body trembling with awe. He turned to his wife, his eyes flooding with tears of joy, and pulled her into his embrace. "Finally, we'll have a child of our own." Mrs. Bassey stood frozen, her lips parted, her breath caught in disbelief. She whispered, her voice shaking, "Really, doctor? I'm pregnant?" The doctor smiled, nodding gently. "Yes, madam, you are." She wept. But these were not tears of sorrow. These were tears that watered joy, tears that released years of pain, tears that turned mourning into dancing. She looked at her husband, who was beaming with smiles, his face glowing like a man who had touched the edge of heaven. For once in her life, she felt fulfilled. On their way back, they stopped at the newly opened restaurant downtown. The place was alive with soft music and the aroma of freshly cooked meals that reminded them of home. The wooden chairs gleamed, and the walls were adorned with paintings of African landscapes, majestic mountains, rivers flowing like silver, and villages painted in sunset hues. They sat together, laughter rising between them like a flame rekindled. The food tasted like home, spiced jollof rice, peppered goat meat, fried plantains golden as the morning sun. It was more than a meal. It was a communion of souls, a celebration of a promise fulfilled. For the first time in years, they returned home truly happy, truly fulfilled. The shadows of sorrow lifted, replaced with a light that burned in their hearts. But even as joy settled upon them, fate stirred once more in silence. For on that very day, Mrs. Bassey's elder sister, 40 years old, still unmarried, her heart tangled with envy and unshed tears, came visiting. And the ancestors whispered again, "Not every smile hides joy, and not every visitor comes with blessings." Where love blossoms, envy sometimes plants its thorns. The evening sun melted into gold and crimson, painting the walls of the Kalu home in hues of fire and memory. Silence lingered in the parlor, broken only by the soft hum of a ceiling fan, until the sharp, unexpected trill of the doorbell cut through the stillness like a drumbeat of fate. Mrs. Bassey, radiant even in her gentle weariness, rose from where she sat. Her heart stirred with the quickened flutter of curiosity, her steps light yet hesitant, as though her spirit already sensed the shadow waiting behind the door. She swung the door open, and there stood Esther, her elder sister. The years had etched pride into Esther's face, beauty framed by a stiffness that told of battles lost to time and bitterness. "Auntie Esther," Bassey exclaimed softly, startled, but genuinely warm. "What brings you here?" Esther's eyes narrowed, annoyance flashing like a knife. Her lips twisted into a scowl. "I don't blame you. Is that the good afternoon you were supposed to tell me? Since when did it become a crime to come see my own sister? Or am I not welcome now because you're finally pregnant?" Her words dripped with venom veiled as jest, but her eyes betrayed the bitterness festering within. Bassey staggered internally, her chest tightening. Shocked, she stammered, "No, Auntie, it's not like that. Of course you're always welcome to my home." "Good afternoon." Esther waved a dismissive hand. "It's okay. I just came to see my pregnant sister." She let the word pregnant hang like an accusation, her voice tinged with envy. "Come to think of it, where is your husband?" "He's not home now. He'll be back later," Bassey replied softly, her voice carrying both politeness and unease. Esther leaned back against the doorframe, eyes scanning the parlor with the entitlement of one already at home. "Okay then, can you at least offer me a seat?" "Oh, I'm sorry." "Please have a seat." Esther sat with a deliberate grace, making herself comfortable in a way that declared her refusal to leave soon. One look at her and anyone could tell. She had no plans of departing that day, perhaps not even the next. The ancestors whispered, "A guest who does not state the length of their stay often comes with a hidden burden." Mr. Kalu, a man of quiet strength and guarded privacy, had never liked visitors lingering in his home. To him, the home was a sacred temple of intimacy, meant for peace, not for endless chatter of relatives. Unless it was Christmas or New Year, visitors, whether from his family or his wife's, were unwelcome. He guarded his household as a lion guards its den. Privacy was his kingdom. But Bassey, wise and perceptive, had already texted him discreetly. "My sister is here. She doesn't seem to plan on leaving, and true to his calm certainty, mister." Kalu texted back with assurance, "Don't worry. I know exactly what to do." Returning to the parlor, Bassey forced a tender smile. "It's been a while since you came around." "How are you doing?" Esther, reclining with a stiff air of self-importance, shrugged. "I'm fine, dear." "And how are Mama and Papa doing?" Bassey asked carefully. Esther's expression twisted, anger flashing like lightning in her eyes. "You have a phone, right?" Confused, Bassey nodded. "Yes, I do." "Then why don't you call and ask them how they're doing?" "Do I look like Mama and Papa's keeper?" Bassey's voice softened, her face falling. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to upset you." The room grew tense. Before the silence could drown them, a knock came at the door. Esther stiffened. "Are you expecting anyone?" "No," Bassey replied, standing slowly. "That may be my husband." Esther arched an eyebrow. "I thought you said he went to work." "Why is he back this early? It's just 5:30 p.m. Bassey ignored the sting in her sister's tone and walked gently to the door. She opened it, and her heart instantly melted. "Good evening, honey." Mr. Kalu's smile was tender, his voice warm as the evening sun. "Good evening, my heartbeat. How are you doing today?" "I'm fine. Just missed you." They embraced passionately, their bodies finding solace in each other's arms, unaware that eyes filled with envy burned holes into their joy from inside the parlor. Esther's voice rang out, sharp with impatience. "Bassie!" "Who is at the door?" Still wrapped in her husband's arms, Bassie called back, "It's my lovely husband." Moments later, Mr. Kalu stepped in, bowing politely. "Good evening, Auntie Esther." Her lips curved into a smile too sweet to be sincere. "Good evening, in-law. How was work today?" "It was fine." "This one you came back so early. Hope all is well?" she probed, her voice heavy with suspicion. Mr. Kalu smiled calmly, a secret dancing in his eyes. "Yes, all is well." I planned a surprise for my wife. Bassie tilted her head, feigning ignorance. "What surprise, dear?" "Well, remember the trip I told you about last week?" "Yes, I remember." "My office granted me a 1-month leave today, so hurry, pack a few of our things. I'd like us to go today." Bassie's face lit up with joy. "Okay, love." She dashed into their room, her laughter trailing behind like music. Mr. Kalu excused himself quietly and went into the shower. Esther sat still, her face tightening with each passing moment. She had planned to stay for days, to hide from her parents' endless reminders about marriage and family. Her heart was heavy with bitterness. Though beautiful in her own right, life had dealt her a cruel hand in love. Suitors came and went, but none stayed. She was 40, unmarried, her dreams of family fading like smoke in the wind. Meanwhile, Bassie had always drawn suitors effortlessly, chosen and cherished. Envy burned within her. Why her? Why not me? Her thoughts turned sharp, cutting at her own soul. Perhaps marriage was not my portion. Perhaps love was never meant for me. Then she called out, her voice cold, "Bassie! Bassie!" "Yes, Auntie?" Bassie's voice floated back from the room. "I'll be on my way now." "Okay, Auntie. See you some other time." And so Esther left, her steps heavy with unspoken grief, her heart poisoned with jealousy. When they were sure she had gone, Mr. Kalu called out joyfully, "Honey." "Yes, love." "She's gone." They both came out to the parlor, laughter filling the air as they embraced. "Finally, some peace," Mr. Kalu whispered. "Are we really going on a vacation?" "Yes, my heart beats. We are." "Wow, what a coincidence. I thought it was just a show-off." He smiled. "No, dear. The office really gave me a 1-month leave, and I thought, why not spend it with the most beautiful woman in the world before she gives birth?" Her eyes glowed. "What will I do without you?" The ancestors smiled upon them, whispering, "When love is true, even silence becomes music."